Joining us for a special Off the Beaten Path episode. And sometimes we do music on this channel, as folks know. And if you saw the episode we did from the book release party about 2 months ago, then you're familiar with this guy, my good friend Van Romaine, joining us from his studio outside of New York City. Hi, Van.
How you doing, Ward? Thanks for having me, brother.
I'm glad we finally were able to get
Yeah.
our calendars synced up here. We've been
Yeah.
trying to do this for a few weeks. So I remember growing up, every band I was in, we'd always practice at the drummer's house because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
parents had already bought into the fact it was noisy. What drew you to the drums?
Well, like anyone else, I was into the Beatles when they first came out and Elvis, and my parents, huge music fans and also very musical people. But although I have never marched in a marching band, aside from a drum corps or two, the high school marching band used to practice on my street in Glen Ridge, New Jersey. And speaking of Top Gun, I graduated with Tom Cruise.
What?
But maybe that's another story.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. You can't just throw that out here. What
Okay.
are you talking about?
Yeah, Tom Cruise, aka Tom Maypother, graduated class of '80 from Glen Ridge High School with like about 110 of us. So yeah,
What's his real last name? I did not know this.
Maypother.
Maypother?
Yeah,
Okay.
small town next to Montclair, but about 45 minutes from New York City on a good day. But anyway, the marching band used to practice on my street, and I remember, color guard, horn section, woodwinds, brass, and also the drums came by, and I remember just like one of the earliest memories I have is just being sucked into that. So yeah, it kind of chose me, and then I started getting paid to play gigs with older folks when I was 13ish, and I just wanted to play, and they put $100 in my hand. I was like, oh, maybe I'm onto something here, because I don't see any other 13-year-olds in this band. So um, that's kind of how it started, and I wasn't good at anything else.
So your parents were cool with that? Because that's always the sort of long pole in the tent at that age.
Most of the drummers I know are pretty even keel, even tempered, friendly people. And my belief is because anyone that would have two parents that would go, yeah, sure, even if you ever end up sounding great, it's still going to suck for the whole family and all the neighbors. Yeah, let's go for that.
You mentioned you were playing at age 13, you're getting paid to play. Were you playing with rock bands? What genre were you playing in those days?
Yeah, I was all over the place. 'Cause my father was a huge jazz fan, especially big band jazz. So I really got into Buddy Rich, all these big bands, Stan Kenton, Woody Herman, Duke Ellington, and I've seen a lot of them live. But I also remember holding and listening to the first Black Sabbath record and knowing my life was going to change right then and there.
What was your first well-known artist that you worked with?
My first gig that I got, like auditioned for, got the gig, was Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And I think that was 86 or 87. That was when I first started touring. I had a little bit of a resume before then, but it was usually one-offs with some bands. But that was like I got the gig. I'm in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I started getting a little bit of attention from like endorsing companies, not signing me on the full endorsements yet, but going, this guy's young and maybe we should like invest in him a little bit, see if something else happens.
Well, how many of the original members of Blood, Sweat, and Tears were in the band when you were none?
None. However, David Clayton Thomas was the guy who sang most of the hits people are familiar with. He's not an original member though. And it was a bunch of session guys from New York, that I'd be doing records with, and so the band was smoking hot, and it was really, I mean, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Chicago, maybe the early years of fusion, jazz and rock together and soul music. Really loved it. It was amazing. I didn't last very long because then I got the Morse gig.
So talk to us about how that came about.
That was another audition. My bandmate in the Steve Morse Band since '89 is Dave LaRue. And Dave did a Dregs tour, Dregs reunion tour, because I think Andy West at the time didn't want to go on tour. I was into rock and roll and jazz, like I said, and I had gotten more into Miles and fusion, Return to Forever, Weather Report, Mahavishnu Orchestra, still into Sabbath and Zeppelin. But the, I had heard Cruise Control, but I wasn't so familiar with the Dregs music. And anyway, I went to see Dave play with the Dregs, and I was just blown away. I couldn't take my eyes off Steve. I was just like, this guy's amazing. If I could work somehow with him, you know. Rod Morgenstein, the original drummer from the Steve Morse Band and the Dregs, was with Winger, and that was exploding, becoming hugely successful. So yes, Steve was looking, and Dave and I have always had this next level musical chemistry together. It's scary because we improvise a lot, and sometimes we'd play like 2 bars of the same improvised thing together, having never played it before. And anyway, we always had this special thing. I was in a band with Dave called Stretch, had a bit of a following in Jersey and Philly. So that's how I met Dave. So anyway, Steve is in town. I think he was up in the New York, New Jersey area with Kansas, and we got together and played Cruise Control, The Odyssey, Night Meets Light. Night Meets Light's one of the hardest songs I've ever had to learn. But once I learned it, oh my God.
I think What If is a perfect album. And how evocative Night Meets Light is just such a gorgeous song.
But the phrasing in Night Meets Light really took me a long time because a lot of times with songs, you're like, you can think of it even if it's instrumental. Oh, let's call that the verse, and this is the pre-chorus, that's the chorus. Night Meets Light's just this evolving. It's so beautiful, and playing that with the trio was just some of the most levitating musical moments with dynamics. And then we were invited when Steve was still at Deep Purple. We were invited to play, was it 2 or 3 songs in the middle of their show, like during the intermission with the London Symphony Orchestra, playing it with the 80-piece orchestra. Night Meets Light, they wrote an arrangement for it. It was just, I was like, I'm good. You can kill me now. Like, it's just one of the most beautiful experiences I've been a part of, for sure.
Let me play a little snippet here of you in your studio recording. I don't know if you're recording or just doing a demo around one of the Steve Morse Band album, and you're playing a song. And Steve likes to do sort of wordplay. This is called John Deere Letter. So let me play this little snippet from that. So I mean, again, that's like bluegrass chicken picking, but with a progressive sort of vibe.
The thing I like about Steve's composition, it's all kinds of things, but there's also a sense of humor in that. You know what I mean?
He's a super smart guy. He's got a bone dry wit.
And I'm not comparing him to Frank Zappa musically, but it's something I also enjoyed about Zappa because he was this just incredible composer and player, but he was also, he could easily start having a sense of humor about the stuff. So it's another angle, a facet of Steve's writing and vibe that I just love, you know.
You know, I mentioned that you have an eclectic background that understates it. You're doing Latin, you're doing fusion, you're doing prog rock, you're doing straight up pop with Billy Joel, you're doing hip hop, you're doing R&B. You know, you're all over the map here. This is a testament to, again, your literacy and just how agile you are. So I remember after you and I just done and we'll talk in greater depth about that event that was my bucket list item when having you and Steve join me
That was
for the
fun.
book release party. But I remember I was talking to you like a few days later, and you were like, I've already turned the page because I got to focus on the next thing, right? So you
Yeah, and
got,
I don't mean that. I never mean that in a negative way. I just,
I
I,
got it. And I'm
I,
like, this is where, if you're, and it's kind of like me in aviation where I'm like, we already did that mission. And this next one is completely different. So I'm not going to like worry about the details of that one. I've seriously got to focus on this one. In our case, you had just come from playing with the B-52s. I guess would you call it a residency in Vegas? And you played with them before that, then, right? That wasn't the first time you played with them.
no, I did a bunch of shows the end of 24,
Okay.
subbing for a great friend of mine, Sterling Campbell. So, but I had so much fun with those guys, and that's an incredible band. And the singers, all the three original singers. It's not the original band, but incredible backing band too, including Tracy Wormworth was with Sting and Wayne Shorter years back, and a bunch of other acts. And yeah, apples and oranges, bro. Like,
Right. Yeah. So you're doing B-52s, then we did 7 songs, and then you go off and rejoin Enrique, and now you're focusing on the stuff that Steve sends you that you got to put the drum tracks on the Steve Morse Band, and then you guys are going to tour. So what's your process for staying ahead of the next task?
I don't know. I like, as far as the studio goes, I like to continue to learn the best ways of recording, and then um, I mean, I just get excited when something is new because that's the creative process. And sometimes there's a lot of managerial work to do, administrative, blah blah blah, which is not as fun, but it's like a necessary. It's a business, right? So any musician, artist that doesn't treat it like it's a business, yeah, I feel like the shelf life might be limited. Uh, a lot of these things I've learned from Steve Morse and from Blood, Sweat, and Tears, especially from Enrique. This guy's like he knows the people to hire for his marketing. And I know it's completely different music, but the guy was just voted biggest Latin pop icon of all time. And I think initially people were like, oh, yeah, he's lucky, it's got his last name. And I'm like, I don't think that got his foot in the door, but he's had one of the longest careers that I've seen, and he's still huge globally.
Well, let
And
me play a couple of just to give people a sense of the scope of when you're playing with Enrique, and it cracks me up because we played to 120, 150 people, and then you go to play where we the Canary Islands and Spain, and you're playing to 80,000, 100,000 people. But let me play a couple of snippets here so they'll get a sense of the energy in case they maybe are unfamiliar with Enrique or certainly have never been to one of his shows. So here's the start. So that's nuts. Where do you
Yeah,
remember where that show went on? Where was that?
that was Riga, Latvia,
Oh, okay, okay.
Eastern Europe, and yeah, that's the audio is a little rough. It's coming from the GoPro, I think.
You know, you can see Enrique comes up through the stage, crowd's going crazy.
You can hear that's all like 98% females, you know.
So here's another excerpt with Pitbull joins you guys on stage, kind of again to give you the viewer a sense of the energy of these shows.
She gon' make you move to Miami. Oh yeah. She gon' make you move to Miami. But she said no hands, but it's still clear. But she wanna be baby. Here's an ad. Welcome to the world of shaking cat. In my head, never saw this shit. Never saw this shit. Never saw play. Never saw blue. Never saw bad. She gon' make you move to Miami. She gon' make you move. She gon' make you move to Miami. She gon' make you move. She gon' make you move to Miami.
Classic van move there with the. I love it. I love it.
We have fun, man.
It looks like an amazing, energy.
Yeah, it's all about energy and finding the right people, and that's become another like just happened by default, sort of becoming a musical director or band leader, whatever you want to call it. And so my main thing is like hiring people that resonate well with the artists, you know, and that's very, very specific. I've made enough mistakes cutting corners where I just won't do it anymore. I'm just like, well, the search isn't over, you know, but I know it now when I really find the person. And that's part of the job. I don't know how interesting that is. Like we just had right before the show in Las Palmas, 80,000 headlining this festival. Uh, one of our guitar players had a family emergency, couldn't travel like 5 days before the show. It was probably one of Enrique's most important shows in the last 5 years or something. And there's multiple 3 stages and all these. It's not choreography. There's staging and anyway. So yeah, I had to find a new guy, rehearse some remotely because I was already in Vancouver doing something else, and then he ended up flying to Miami. Uh, uh, there's another musical director in Enrique's camp. He's produced all his last hits. Carlos Bacar. So Carlos, I got him. The guy all the files. I rehearsed him. Then he flew down, rehearsed with Carlos and Enrique, and they're like, he's ready. So, but that kind of stuff.
It's a very 21st century sort of use of tech to get this guy, to get him up to speed.
Yeah.
And this is a great opportunity for him. He's young, right?
23, man. Just
Yeah.
graduated Berkeley. Rock star.
So
Great human being. Smart. Ask all the right questions.
so he had days to learn this material.
He was on tour with someone else wrapping up, and he learned. He showed up in Miami and knew pretty much everything. He had some cheat notes. By the time he got to Spain, he knew everything. We rehearsed in a hotel room with speakers, and so yeah. Sometimes you got to jump through hoops, but yeah, when the shit hits the fan, which does happen occasionally, you gotta make it happen.
How do you think you went from just one member of the band that did his job well into, in the case of Enrique, the musical director? What happened there?
Well, I think with all the, I haven't had a lot of MD jobs. The first one was kind of unofficially with Bernie Worrell from Parliament Funkadelic. He called me his lieutenant. I'm like, okay, what's the lieutenant supposed to do? He goes, put my band together, help me arrange stuff, write music with me. I'm like, oh, cool, I can do that.
But where did that come from? Did he like your vibe? Did he trust you?
Yeah, we just had a beautiful chemistry together. I'm a huge fan of his. To me, he's like Jimi Hendrix of the keyboards, you know. I couldn't believe I was even meeting him, you know, like Same reaction with Morse. And then Nana, 99 Love Balloons, Nana was the next one. And then Enrique. And in all those three situations, I know that the artists, they wanted someone that was already in the band of people to be the musical director, because they already kind of understood the workings of it. And I just happened to be, out of those, however many people were in those bands, 5 to 8 people, I happened to be maybe the best option in their point of view.
I know. What does that mean? Trustworthy. You think, you're a big picture kind of guy. You're organized. What are they? Because again, this is not a linear thing. It's not like there's a billet description like in the Navy. If I show up at a squadron as a department head, the maintenance officer, the operations officer, I open the policy document, and I just comply with the instruction.
Yeah.
There's no rule book for being the musical director for Funkadelic or Enrique.
The way I see it, number one, they have to trust you musically, that you have a connection to the music, and then you understand the music, and that you're musical within their songs, their art, or whatever you want to call it. And then, I am pretty even keel. This last thing in Spain was so incredibly stressful for the artist, and he dealt with it like a champ. But no matter how many, whatever the situation is, how much the artist is panicking or stressing or freaking out, I'm like, I'm listening. I'm right here. I'm listening to you. We're gonna get through this, and I don't join the stress party, because that's not my job. So, and I found that really works. Whether it's my endorsement companies, like companies that believe in me, or an artist like Enrique or Nana that believes that I can MD something that's so important to them, I'm going to deliver. I got to kill myself to deliver. That's an honor, and maybe that does cross over into the service work, where it's, if you're doing it for your country or what you believe in, I don't really know, because I haven't been there myself. Maybe it's different for each person.
Well, a guy like you, because there are parallels, and I use the Navy as a platform to meet my heroes, whether it was Payne Stewart or Tommy Lee and Steve, right? It was obviously it's an interesting job, and Top Gun, the first one, had come out, so everybody knew about the F-14. And so being in an F-14 squadron was enough of a novelty that when you invited somebody to come and tour the squadron spaces or whatever, they would generally take you up on it. But your personality, and I've seen this in you, and I know it's true, that you're the guy who can just sort of take the velocity and not accelerate it back. I'm not sure I'm always that guy, and so I've served with other aviators that were like you. And when you're saying that, I'm like, this is crucial. I remember one time I was the head of a detachment aboard an aircraft carrier where we're training new F-14 pilots how to land on the ship. And the seas were rough that particular night. And we weren't getting enough done because these guys had to get qualled so they could go to squadrons that were deployed overseas. And so I phoned the beach from the ship at night and called a guy named Bill Sizemore, who remains a good friend of mine. And I was kind of in, stressed, probably like when Enrique's like, we need a guitarist, and that was me. And Size, I'll just remember, he's like, Mooch, relax, it'll be fine. Right. Just like that. And so that just took me down to where I needed to be to now focus, work with the ship. And ultimately we did get these guys qualled. But if he'd been another guy who's just freaking out back through the phone at me freaking out at him, that wouldn't be productive, and so, that role that you have assumed is vital to getting it done.
I feel so blessed to be able to play music, be involved with music, that I really show up to everything. Like, how do I fit into this team here? Like, maybe I don't play anything, or maybe I play egg shaker, or maybe I'm playing drums and programming some samples, or maybe I'll be the oh, they're asking me to be the MD. They need that. Okay, well, I'll give it a shot. So I don't ever walk in like trying to control things, or um, I just want to serve. That's really what it is, serving the music.
So you and I know each other through Steve, and every time you guys would come into town, and this is like for decades, we'd say hi and then chit chat and so forth and so on. So I was getting ready to do the book release of Punk's Force, and I was like, I want to make this kind of a big deal, because this is probably maybe the last book I write, and it's just a rare opportunity. So I reached out to Steve and said, hey, I'd like to do a little showcase in front of this audience of an interesting audience of military folks and writers and local luminaries and my golf buddies and everybody from the greater Annapolis and DC area. And so Steve first said, well, and this was like last February, he said, well, just tell me, like, I don't know yet. So ping me again, like 6 weeks later. So then I reached out to you and I'm like, I'm thinking we're doing this thing. And you're like, well, I want to make it happen. But as anybody who's watched the show can figure out, you're a busy guy. And so you're like, I'd like to make it happen, but I can't commit yet. And then when I pinged Steve the second time, he said, okay, it's on my calendar. And that's where we had to take it up a notch. And now I'm not just putting, event together. I'm like throwing a wedding, right? And so I got that sound company because they were just going to put up the stage, and I was going to use my band's PA and my sound tech. And then when it's you guys, I'm like, okay, we're not going to fight about why is this feeding back. And, every time my band sets up, there's always some kind of flail going on. This extraordinary entertainment was awesome. And so got you, it turns out, and I did not know this, there are no direct flights between Newark and BWI, right? We found that out. And so one of my patrons, a Tomcat guy, Tom and his wife pick you up at Reagan. We got you out of Newark, which this last couple of months has not been an easy thing. Newark's been in the news for all the wrong reasons. But anyway, I sent you the set list, and this is sort of the manifestation of what you're talking about in terms of being quick on the uptick. 7 songs. And then I said, okay, you get to put on your music director hat because some of these fade out, right? Some of the songs that we did don't have a ending. Well, we showed up and our sound check doubled as the rehearsal. And we just figured out a few parts. You had written it out, the notations, the drum notations.
Honestly, I'm a huge Leonard Skinner fan, but I haven't played a lot of cover stuff. I mean, I played some wedding bands when I was in high school and college, but not too many cover bands. I moved to New York and I was like, I just want to make records and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, yeah, I had to really I need to chart out the phrasing of Freebird because it goes through these things, and if you don't make it kind of what it is, it's not going to sound right.
So Steve showed up day of. He drove. He was going to fly his airplane, but the weather didn't support him flying into the greater.
He drove
Annapolis.
to DC. I didn't know.
He drove to Annapolis. Yeah.
Annapolis. Sorry.
Yeah, from Florida, right?
Never confuse those two things.
I saw him pull up to the hotel across the street from the venue, and I go up to him and he says, "Are we really playing Freebird?" I said, "Yeah, yes." And he goes, "Well, then I need a slide." Yeah. And so Tom and I jumped in a car and we went to the local music store, who their inventory is always bad, because retail isn't where it's at anymore. That they're doing, they make their money with lessons. So
Yeah.
I was like, I go in there, I'm like, do you have any slides? And the guy points to the wall, and that's the one thing they had a lot of.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. So, I'm texting Steve, okay, what size? 10.5. Okay, got a 10.5 glass slide. Boom, we did it.
Yeah.
And so, we were operating without a net pretty much, but it came off better than anything I've ever done. And the sound company during the sound check decided we're going to record this, because originally they weren't. There was no plan. There was no plan for them to record it. Here's a good example of how it went down. And this is the outro to the Cream song White Room. That was a blast. Transcendent.
Oh, man,
I almost wept watching Steve do that, and you too. The fills, and you can see the language that you guys have.
He's such a great guitar player, man.
Yeah,
always inspired,
Yeah, I mean, his phrasing, he makes it his own. The Freebird outro is the same kind of thing, and like you said, you broke it up into the different parts. Including we figured out the live ending, the bolero ending, which was kind of fun. And then we did Give Me Back My Bullets. And this is all an homage to basically Steve's career. And the live version, I didn't realize this till you pointed it out. The live version of Give Me Back My Bullets is a little faster, and it also has a definitive ending, which is great. So we did that. But that's another thing when you talk about music theory. So we're during the sound check, we're like, okay, it has this after, to end Give Me Back My Bullets, it has the first riff, and then it goes into that sort of tighter riff all the way to the end. And Steve's like, well, where's the one? He's looking at me like, where's the one? I'm like, what? He's like, well, where's the one? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Because it comes off the end of one, right? It's one, two, off three.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Da ba da 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 da.
But then it goes dun 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 and to the end. But then your advice to all of us, again, putting on your mini music director hat, was be very obvious, like emote, make your body language like, here we go.
Oh, for cueing those kind of things, yeah.
Yes. Don't be subtle about it.
I kind of
right?
figure with those things, as long as you end on the last note together,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, we did because sometimes you stumble out of that, right?
Yeah.
So that one has to stop. We get that right, but then you can see, and you do this with your, like, we're going around one more time, right? That was the signal, and you go,
Okay.
here we go, and then we ended it, boom, and Steve does, and then he wheels away like with kind of like satisfaction.
Cool to
That
see
so
that,
that
man. I forgot, that's
no, we nailed that one. We nailed
good.
Good Times, Bad Times, which is another song that doesn't end on the record. It fades out.
Yep.
And we nailed that, Dan Dan. That was just so much fun. And then you and I got to go up and do a little after party with your buds from the area here, and that
Yep.
was a real great. So you and I got some quality time, which was fantastic. So just want to take this opportunity to thank you for making the effort. That was no minor thing in the middle of your busy schedule.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Yeah, it's weird at my age to be like, "Oh, wow, I'm learning Freebird for the first time. Like, how come I never?" Uh, anyway,
Well, I think we did it justice, right? We're honoring the song. It's not some
yeah,
sort of a
yeah.
mangling of it. We honor it. Steve's slide is fantastic. We actually do a little bit of dual lead in there with my my rote hammer on and pull off stuff and a
Mhm.
few bends. Well, Van, you're a very busy guy. As you mentioned, you're on your way back to join Enrique in Mexico. You got the studio going on. Hopefully, you're getting some bookings there and keeping that place, busy. So I imagine the next time we'll see you, unless you do a gig with somebody else in DC, is this tour coming up this fall in support of the new Steve Morse Band album. So we'll look forward to that and to seeing you guys in real life during those shows.
For real, yeah, it'd be great to see you again there too. Yeah, they passing through your neighborhood, I'm pretty sure.
Well, thanks very much, Van. And again, I hope our paths cross before too long, and safe travels.
You're stuck with me now, bro. I'm constantly be bothering you. So thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. If you're not already a subscriber, become one so you don't miss anything. And in the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.